Alright, so I tried an experiment today. I've got multiple camera angles, kind of a picture-in-picture, so that you can see my palette where I'm mixing, and then also see the panel, obviously, with me painting. And so the way I approach chrome or shiny or reflective surfaces or reflective objects is I try not to think of the object that I'm painting. I mean, I'll do a sketch more or less of the outline or the basic structure of the object, but then I just kind of fill in, you know, just patches of color. Because basically what a shiny object does, or a chrome object, it reflects whatever's around it. So, and oftentimes it can be distorted by the shape of the object itself. Like in this case, the toaster is kind of distorting the reflected room. I'm working from a tiny image, so I'm not going to include the source material because, you know, between the panel and the palette, I figure that's enough for this one, and you'll see the toaster develop. This video is already pretty long, so I'm just going to shut up, and here we go. I'm going to do a quick tone with burnt sienna. Sometimes putting a little bit of you know, wash on your panel will help the paint go on a little bit easier. And because we're kind of working rapidly here, we want to make sure that we're not, you know, that the paint goes down really quickly and easily. And I wipe most of it off. All right. And I'll just use the burnt sienna to start sketching. Okay, even though there's going to be, this toaster actually has some toast that's going to be visible. All right, so I'm not talking right now very much because I'm trying to get this, just get the sketch right. Okay. I can hear my freaking camera is auto-focusing, so it's still going to have some kinks to work out as far as doing these demo type things. But we're just going to roll with it. Alright, so there's a little handle on here. So this is kind of a complicated subject just because it's like got so much, you know, it's a toaster with toast coming out of it. Sort of a complicated, a lot of interesting angles. It's complicated drawing. But, you know, I'm not complaining. I like a challenge. All right, I think that's good enough to get started. I'm gonna roll back and take a quick look here from a distance. Okay, this needs to come down at more of an angle. Yes, it's very important to get back and make sure that it looks good from a distance. When you're up on your work, it's kind of hard to judge. So I'm constantly moving back. That's why I have a rolling chair. Okay. We're not going for perfection here. We're definitely going for speed. I'm going to start laying in the darks first. And I'm using a mixture of ultramarine and a little bit of cadmium red light. And I'm mixing up a dark that's almost black. I don't have any black on my palette, so now you can see this paint goes on really smoothly. I'm using a fairly big brush. I'm going to work really fast here. Okay. Making very quick and decisive strokes. Looking for big shapes. And I'm just blocking out all the darks right now. Getting all those darks handled. Trying to do, like I said, very definitive strokes. Okay. And then there's going to be a shadow that kind of comes off in this direction right here. There's like kind of there's a little plug in the plug in the wall is here. Sometimes I'd leave something like this out, but on the other hand, it can be kind of a nice detail, so we'll see. Maybe we'll eliminate it. All right, so now we have, okay, and then I'm already suggesting some of the reflections, but not really going overboard with it. Because the thing with chrome is that chrome is just simply reflecting what's around it. Okay, so next I'm going to mix up a little bit of background color. So I'm using cerulean, and I'll gray it down a bit with some burnt sienna. Actually, I'm going to warm it up, make it more of an aqua color. I'll test it out. That's pretty good. Right there. How's this for like haphazard mixing? I'm not too worried about it because a lot of this I can adjust afterwards. Okay, this side has, so there's a turn in the wall right there, there's a corner. And so this is a little bit bluer, like more, so I've got a little bit of ultramarine in the mix here. And this is, you know, we're racing the clock here, so we have no, we can't mess around and worry too much. Just got to make it happen. Okay. All right, now we're going to go for, okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of, this is, I don't always have yellow ochre on my, I don't always have it on my palette, but it's there because I was doing some landscape, so I'm going to use it. See how that looks. It needs to be darker. I'll just gray it down with a little bit of what, this is just sort of like, this is my dark mix here. I'm just going to use that because it's there. I'm just going to use it to gray things down. And I want to warm that up a little bit. So that's pretty good. It's kind of like a wooden table. Brush is a little bit dirty. Okay, I want to gray this down a little bit more. Yeah, still more. Maybe I'll use some of this. I'll mix some of that in there. Okay. And I can adjust all this, you know, later. So just want to cover it, and see where I'm at, see where things are. This needs to be warmer up here. Okay, and now I'm going to mix a little bit of, I'm going to mix in a little bit of purple here, or not purple, yeah, for the shadow. Mix a little bit of that into, I'm going to go over here. All right, and I can tune that up later when I'm tuning up this color here. I've got some dark reds for this jam over here. So, oh, let's see, that goes up higher. It's like about like that. Okay. I forgot to put, there's like a dark handle on there. So I can put that on now too. Dark handle is like on the knife. All right, now it's time to start putting in the colors. There's sort of, now, yeah, like I said, the this like chrome objects, they're just obviously reflecting what's around them. So we're going to start putting in some of the things they're reflecting, like right up here. Oh, that's a little bit light. It's reflecting the wall. I'm going to make that a little darker. Okay, there's this. And so when you're looking at the toaster or the shiny object, you don't want to be like thinking in terms of it's not going to make any sense until you put the highlights on. So you're just kind of looking at it almost as if it's an abstract, and you're saying, okay, well, I've got this shape here of, you know, there, and you don't even need to necessarily think about what it is. So, all right, I got this shape here, and then I've got this sort of darker blue shape. I don't even know what it is. It's reflecting something in this kitchen here. And there's like this, okay. So there's this coming along like that. And then also it comes along over here. There's a little bit of this same color right in here. Like that. There's a little touch of it right there. Okay, and then that's a little bit grayed down. Okay, this is sort of similar color to the countertop, but it's definitely a little bit grayer. It's a little darker. Oops. We'll go with it. And then over here, actually on this side, it's like kind of green. Yeah, like that a little bit. All right. So if I was thinking about this as a toaster, like I wouldn't be able to, I would just be so bogged down and I'd be worried about, you know, I'm not worried, I'm not looking at this and thinking, oh, this is a toaster. I'm not even, I don't care what it is. I'm just looking at shapes and where the color is and trying to put it in the right place. And I just trust that when I'm done, it's going to work because, you know, and at the very end, I will change my vision back to viewing it as a toaster and make whatever changes need to be made to kind of fix it up. But for now, I'm just not. I'm completely just focusing on viewing this as an abstract collection of shapes and just trying to convert them in the most spontaneous way. And then I will tune it up, like I said, afterwards. And painting like this is definitely kind of, I mean, there's no doubt it's sort of an adventure. And it's kind of, maybe it's sort of thrilling or exhilarating because you're like, I don't know, maybe it's like surfing a little bit. It's like you're just kind of, you're just riding the wave. You know what I mean? You're just riding the wave. Just following instinct and not getting too, that's a different color there. Okay, some more gray down. Okay. And again, I want there to be this expressive sort of brushwork. I like that. Like, you know, if you put your brushwork down in a decisive fashion, you know, it lets people know that you feel you know what you're doing, or you meant to do it. You know, even if you didn't. It's better to look like you meant to do it. All right, so now I'm mixing up some of this color for the toast. The top of the toast is kind of burnt. Okay. All right. One of the nice things about doing still lifes is, or like subjects like this, is that you get to mix colors that you don't normally get to work with. Because outdoors, well, like if you're painting outdoors a lot of the colors outdoors are, you know, there's a lot of just muted, grayed down colors. I don't know, I guess that'll do. All right. Okay, and here there's some random shapes in here that I think must be a reflection of some toast or something. All right. Now there's a dark section here. And you want to put your darks in first because it's just good to establish your darks because it's harder to come back in and put dark paint over lighter paint. You know, it can kind of, like if you lay in your darks at first, it obviously gives the painting structure right off the bat, but it also, it keeps your darks clean and dark. That makes sense. Okay. And if I'm talking gibberish, well, you'll have to forgive me. Okay. Now, the thing that's going to really define this toaster, or this chrome object, is the thing that really defines it is going to be the reflections, like the highlights. So it's already kind of shaping up, right? But And when we lay in some highlights, that's going to really, there's a label. No need to overstate that. Just, there it is. That was kind of a Bob Ross moment right there. Just like that. Okay. Now the handle, kind of a warm gray. Speed painting. Okay, that needs to be a little warmer. And the angle's wrong. Okay, so this is kind of gray up here, this little wall receptacle. I'm going to roll back, take a look. Okay, and I can see there's certain things I need to adjust. All right, so now I'm going to start doing the adjustments, and because I've got the bulk of it on the panel, like this right here is, I can tell this needs to be higher and up a little bit more like that. And then I'll just kind of restate some of these darks. All right, and then down here there's another dark. I'm not sure what this is. It's some sort of reflection. This is over here actually. Okay, all right, now I'm going to use a smaller brush just, and this is a, what is this? This is a number, I don't even know. I think this is a number 8 bright Princeton Reverb, freaking talking music here. Princeton Reverb is like the first guitar amp I ever owned. It's the Princeton 6300 brush. Okay, so, but again, I'm using the small brush only when I cannot use the big brush. Okay. All right, now fix this. All right, go back to the big brush. Okay. All right. Okay, now I can start making adjustments. So I'm going to roll back and look at it and see what it needs. Okay. Now I'm going to just start going back and forth and putting in the finishing touches. All right, and I can tell that okay, I can see another thing needs to be fixed. This needs to go up more. Like this. All right. So just correcting some of the drawing. Maybe like about like that. All right. Okay, pardon the interruption. I noticed while editing this that there's a lot of glare. When I set the whole thing up, there was no, it looked like the lighting was good, but then as the panel got wet, obviously it started reflecting light. So hopefully the next one will be better, but yep, so that's what happened. Okay, back to the show. Okay, so now here's where I just kind of lay in the refinements. And I want to just use big, kind of bold strokes. All right. All right, and then, let's see here. Certain areas up here that are kind of smaller that I'll have to do I have to use the small brush for. Okay, back to the big brush. All right, now I'm going to start adding some highlights. I'm going to use a smaller brush for that. What do I got? Maybe I'll use this. Okay. Go back to lightening this up a little bit. Let's see here. This is kind of a dull. It needs to be lighter though. More blue in it. No, it's more green. That'll work. Again, just using definitive strokes here. And okay, this is lighter too. And it goes like that. I want to define that switch there, or the handle. Okay, and then okay, and then over here, there's definitely some lighter areas on the countertop. So I'm going to kind of indicate some direction here. And we will kind of goes off like that. Okay, let's define this a little bit more here. Okay, and no time to clean the palette. All right, so I'm going to reinforce the color of the background. Keep it dark. I'm going to keep it darker though. But I'm going to just put some definitive strokes here too. Maybe define this knife handle a little bit. Okay. Now notice that the toaster kind of cuts down like that. Okay. Okay. Again, we're going for like a really fast sort of sketch here and not overworking it. And like I said, this is kind of a complicated subject, but this will just give you an idea of you know, kind of how I work. All right, there's some lighter areas up on the toast up here. Look at this area in here behind, it's got more of a glow to it. All right, and then there's, on the front, there's actually very light spots on the toast here. It kind of comes like, see if I can do this, like this almost. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put in some there's a little highlight on the knife too. Just like this and this. And the top of the top of the jar here kind of comes around, and there's maybe a little bit of, I'll just suggest that. Okay. All right, I think we're getting close here. All right, so using a smaller brush now, just at the very end, to kind of put in some smaller lines. Okay, and then there's a reflection, there's like a light bluish reflection on the front of this. Even though this is black, there's sort of some blue reflections on there. And then in the very corner, there's kind of a highlight. Let's put that on. And there's another sort of bluish highlight right here. All right, we'll come back. Put a little bit more of a, oops. Okay, so at this point it's mostly just fine tuning. So running out of mixing area on my palette. Mix a little yellow into that, more of a darker aqua. Now I can clean up, carve back at this knife here and clean that up a little bit. Okay, again, this cuts in more this way. And there's a little bit of a dark edge here, but not much, just to suggest the edge of the toaster. But mostly it's just reflection. Okay. And then there's some right here too. It's got a line that goes like that. I don't know why it does that. That doesn't seem right. This could be going like this. All right, I'm not going to overwork this just because I wanted to show you guys the flow here. All right, so I'm going to add now. Ideally, I would clean up some of this area so I can really clean up my brush to add the highlights. So I'm going to do that. I'll do that first. Just really clean my big brush. All right, and then I'm going to clean an area here to kind of add the highlights. All right, so definitely lighter up in this corner. Okay. And I think the rest I might have to do with a I might have to do the rest with a smaller brush just because the rest of the highlights are a little bit smaller. Actually, I just saw something I want to fix. The trick is like keeping it spontaneous looking. And you know, you want to just lay the stroke down, but it can be difficult to get the proper, you know, you want to get it on the first stroke. And that's kind of hard. Sometimes what I'll do is if I don't get it, then I'll just redo it. All right, now I'm going to add some more, and I'm going to add some I'm adding a little bit of lemon yellow in here because for some reason, like white with lemon yellow seems to really be it pops the most. So that would be like, you know, wherever the lightest source in the room is, which is probably the overhead light. But being that I don't have that information, and then there's highlights down here that are a little bit lighter. Okay. And there's one along the bottom like that. See that? Okay. Okay, since I didn't get that right on that stroke, then I'll just kind of come back and I will redefine that. All right, now I'm going to roll back and look at it. All right, I can see my drawing's a little off here. This needs to go up like that. Okay, so I'm going to fix that area. See how that looks closer. There's little details too that I would do now at this point. Like I would come in and I would maybe lighten up certain areas of this, of the little, what do you call this thing? The toaster lever or whatever. And I'm not really getting good definition there, so I might lighten this line here to kind of define that a little bit. And again, I'm just trying to suggest things. I don't want to I'm not trying to over spell things out. Okay, now I'm going to come back, clear another little area. And let's see here. Yeah, that should be good. And I'm going to do a few more touch-ups here, just a few more highlights, because I kind of got that wrong, like right here. And there. Reinforce that highlight. Okay, now I'm going to come back in and clean up the background. We're going to do this area first. I want to keep it somewhat dark though. And I'll make these edges back here soft so it doesn't stand out. Oops, that's a little bit light. All right, and then there's sort of a dark reflection, or not reflection, but there's a little bit of a shadow against the wall where the plug is. Now normally I would just remove this plug, so you could always do that. And I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, I mean, you can lighten it up. Oops. Okay, so there's the finished product, and I'll just kind of live with it, do some cleanup, but it's pretty close. Okay, so if you made it to the end, congratulations. Like I said before, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.